I've been an orphan all my life. So, I figured I'd just live alone. But then, an unknown girl called out to me.
You're my dad, right?
Next to her, a beautiful woman, tears welling up and covering her mouth, stared at me. This encounter was all of a sudden, revealing a hidden truth. My name is John Middleton. I'm turning 38 this year. Still a bachelor without even a girlfriend. Thanks to my managerial role in a small business, I've got plenty of savings, so I'm not struggling financially. I had resigned myself to working until retirement and then spending my days in a nursing home. With that in mind, I gave up on getting married. I was used to being alone. My parents divorced when I was little. My father's business failed, leaving him with huge debts. Worse, he fell into alcoholism. My mother left us. I ended up living with my father and paternal grandparents, but he didn't work, just drank. I didn't know if that was the reason he passed away early. I've always thought of him as a selfish parent. Father is like that being for me. With such a lineage, I feared I'd only trouble a wife and kids. So, I never longed for marriage. After my grandparents, who raised me in place of my parents, passed away, I had no family left. Quite a lonely life, indeed. Years into this solitude, I'm not sure I've fully adapted. I have no friends to talk to. My only conversations are with colleagues or business partners. They rely on me because of my position, not me. Anyone can take my place. No one truly depends on me. Thinking like that makes me feel even more lonely, but by accepting that it is normal, I am able to live a lonely life alone. One day, I was sent on a business trip. Coincidentally, it was near the area where I spent my early childhood. Though I barely remember it, the place felt nostalgically familiar. Strange, I lived here when I was too young to remember much. I muttered, heading to my business appointment. After work, I strolled around the downtown area. Thinking of my mother, I barely remember her, her looks, her voice. Why did she abandon me? I wanted her to take me with her. Would my life have been better with her? Is she still doing well? I sighed, overwhelmed by emotions, perhaps because this was my hometown. Just then, a mother and child walked towards me. Naturally, since I didn't know them or anything, I didn't pay any attention to them and tried to pass by them, but at that moment, the girl, around 4 years old, pointed at me and exclaimed,
Daddy!
The woman, likely her mother, looked at me with tearful eyes, hands covering her mouth. I was utterly confused. Are you calling me Daddy? When I asked the little girl, she dashed towards me and hugged my legs.
Daddy! You really came back.
What do you mean? Then, the girl's mother hurried over, pulling her away from my pants.
Molly, that's enough. I'm so sorry. We didn't mean to bother you.
No, it's okay, but, she said, Daddy's back. I saw the woman's face turn somber. She said with a strained voice,
You resemble my husband who passed away last year.
I immediately regretted my insensitive question.
I'm really sorry. Molly, this man isn't your dad. Let's go.
The woman said, trying to take her daughter's hand, but she, with a pout, broke free and clung to my pants again.
He is my daddy. He can't be gone. He's definitely my daddy.
Hey, Molly. Don't do that. You know, your dad is anymore.
The woman, holding back further words, looked heartbroken. Her husband must have died suddenly, without a chance for goodbyes. The little girl named Molly seemed unable to accept this reality. Feeling an urge to help, I suggested, Would you like to join me for dinner? Meeting here must be fate. I'll treat you, of course.
Well, I don't know if we should.
The woman hesitated, but Molly didn't want to leave me.
Then, may we take you up on your offer?
She accepted apologetically. I had no ulterior motive. Just hearing "Daddy" and feeling Molly cling to me, perhaps it made me happy. For the first time, I felt acknowledged in my lonely life. When I asked the woman's name, she said Susan. After introducing myself, I asked Molly what she'd like to eat. "Anything you want, I'll treat you."
Really? Then I want pizza. And I want milkshakes.
"Pizza shop." "Sure. Let's go." Susan apologized for being forward, but I found her straightforwardness comforting. At the pizza restaurant, Molly eagerly ate her favorite pepperoni pizza.
I ate 5 pieces of pepperoni last time.
"Wow, that's impressive. Maybe I'll eat 10 pieces.
No way. I can eat more.
We joked around, and Susan laughed. It felt good to bring smiles to their faces. And for me, it was wonderful to share a meal with someone after so long. During meal, Susan asked me,
If you don't mind me asking, John, do you have any siblings?
"Siblings? Well, I don't really talk about it much, but my parents divorced when I was 1. I'm not sure if I had any siblings. It's unlikely anyone would remember being 1 year old." Then, she pointed to a keychain on my bag.
Actually, that keychain looks familiar.
"This one." It was a keychain with an egg motif from an old cartoon. It was cut in half with a magnet inside to attach or detach. I only had one half. I'd never seen the complete set. I didn't even remember when I first had it. It's just always been with me, now attached to my work bag. Then, she rummaged through her bag. And she pulled out something astonishing. She had the other half of my keychain, worn with age.
This was my husband's treasured keepsake. And this is his photo.
She said, showing me a picture. I was shocked again. The man in the photo looked exactly like me. No wonder Molly mistook me for her dad. "Does that mean I had a long-lost brother?" I asked. She nodded.
You know, I was also surprised when I heard your name was John. It's the same as my husband's long-lost brother.
"Really?"
Yes, it was written in the journal he left. I didn't know until I saw it.
On the back of the journal was the name, Jack. It seemed to be her late husband's name. She encouraged me to read it, so I turned the pages.
I wonder if John is doing well. Does he remember me? Probably not. He was just a baby when I left our parents. I always left him alone. It might only hurt him to meet me now. But I still want to apologize properly. I asked about our father's house, but no one lives there now, and the neighbors don't know where John went. It's hard to search alone. Maybe hiring a detective would be good. I'll discuss this with Susan after this job.
Reading the journal left me stunned. I thought I was alone in life, but I had a brother who was trying to find me.
He died in a car accident after that.
Susan said, covering her eyes with a handkerchief. "Jack, my brother." I muttered. Then, a blurry memory became clear. An old house. I was there. Looking up, a kind boy smiled at me.
"Let's meet again, John. With this, we can find each other again,"
he said, giving me one half of the keychain and waving goodbye. I remember. I had a brother. He always played with me.
Are you okay, John?
Susan asked. I suddenly came back to my senses. I apologized and then she said,
I live with my mother-in-law now. Jack's and your mom.
I was stunned. She continued.
Your mom has always been concerned about you, especially since Jack passed. She always says she wants to meet you. Would you like to see her?
My mother was alive and wanted to see me. A shocking fact, hard to accept. My mother, left with only my brother. Now, after all this time.
John.
Susan looked into my eyes and said,
I lost my parents when I was young.
"Oh,
My father died from an illness when I was little, and my mother too. I still regret not being able to say goodbye properly. I can never meet them again."
with her eyes downcast, bearing her sorrow. I wondered how much loss she had endured. Finally, she said,
But John, you can meet your mom. I hope you make a choice you won't regret.
Her words deeply moved me. Thus, I decided to meet my biological mother. A few days later, I went with Susan and Molly to see my mother. She already knew I was coming. What would she look like, waiting for me? Nervous, I entered the house.
Taylor, this is John.
Susan said, opening the door. There stood a woman with streaks of gray in her hair. The woman stared intently at my face, her expression turning to one of disbelief, and then she began to shed large tears.
Is it really you, John? I've wanted to see you for so long. I'm sorry, so sorry.
The first words she said to me were an apology. Through them, I understood her feelings, her long-held regrets. She hadn't left my father and me on a whim. Before I knew it, I was embracing her, tears rolling down my cheeks, calling her Mom. She asked.
You're calling me Mom?
I repeated, Mom, Mom, as if to confirm it over and over. Then, she told me about the time when I was 1 and my brother Jack was 4. After my father's business failed and he fell into alcoholism, our life became very hard. She had no parents to turn to. She feared that staying would lead to the family's collapse. She worried that Dad might even harm us. So, she made the tough choice to leave, taking only Jack because she couldn't afford to care for both of us. At that time, support systems for single parents were not in place. It must have been hard for a woman alone to raise 2 children. There may have been other options. I looked at her graying hair and worn hands and couldn't say anything more. After sharing her past, she apologized again. I told her there was no need. From now on, let me take care of you.
John, you forgive me? I don't deserve to be called your mother.
It's okay. Sure, I had a tough time as a kid. I even resented you. But I'm happy now. I thought I had no family left, but to know that you and Jack were thinking of me. I remembered my brother again, his kind smile that I'll never see again. I wish I could have met Jack. I collapsed, crying for my brother. Now, I visit my mother whenever I have a day off. She has a bad back, so Susan has been her main support, but I've started helping too.
John, you coming here is a huge help. Thank you.
It's nothing, really. Without you, I wouldn't be able to do anything.
I have been like a real daughter to my mother-in-law, Taylor. I want to do my filial duties too.
She said with a smile. My heart skipped a beat. Jack had found such a wonderful woman. I'm really jealous.
Hey, Dad. Let's play together.
Molly still affectionately calls me Dad. Sure, let's go out today.
Are you sure, John? Even on your day off, taking care of Molly.
It's fine. Playing with her is something I look forward to.
You're really kind, just like him.
Susan murmured behind me, but I didn't hear. That's where our relationship stands for now, but the time when I would come to know and love her true kindness was still a little way off. Smith, bring down the net all at once.
Hey, Captain. Understood.
I carefully give instructions to the crew, taking into account the weather and the flow of the tide for the day. Any moment of hesitation could lead to losing the school of fish. It's a daily, high-stakes gamble. I'm John Davis, 45 years old. The town where I was born and raised thrives on fishing, and I've been a fisherman since graduating high school. Being a fisherman is a tough job, both physically and mentally demanding. Moreover, my fishing boat operates offshore, meaning once we set sail, we can be away for several days. Even if something serious happens to my family back on land, I can't rush back. Surprisingly, fishermen's wives are often strong-willed. Taking care of my home while I'm away falls to my wife, Karen. While I might not say it publicly, she's my pride and joy. Karen is cheerful, has a good appearance, and above all, she's skilled at cooking, delighting the family. Despite my frequent absences, she rarely complains. Karen gets along well with the wives of my fellow fishermen. She is sharp and even led them to establish a fish processing facility during my absence. The crew admires Karen like their own mothers. And she has raised our daughter, Emily, quite well. I didn't blindly spend money on Emily's education. We showered her with love and wholeheartedly supported her interests. As a result, she got into one of the top universities in the state. It's rude to Karen, but she has no fashion sense. For example, her hairstyle is out of fashion, and also always wear lame outfit. Yet, her universally loved personality and cheerful nature are perfect for a fisherman's wife. I trusted Karen wholeheartedly, leaving the home in her capable hands. This winter, Emily is preparing for entrance exams to a hard-to-get-into university. Embarrassingly, neither Karen nor I have ever been concerned about education levels, and we've never experienced the rigors of university exams. So, the only thing Karen and I could do was pray diligently. Karen, who couldn't sit or stand still, goes around various churches and buys charms. She always attached them to Emily's bag.
Mom, if you mix so many things, even God will get confused.
Emily would say, grumbling but smiling happily. We earnestly wished that Emily would stay healthy and perform well in the exams. 2 weeks before the exam. While I was out fishing, I spent my waiting time searching on my phone. I was looking at numerous sites about the mindset of parents of exam takers and what parents should support. Looking at numerous sites, I was surprised at how much effort every parent was putting in. Reading them made me nervous. Then it happened. Unexpectedly, I received a call from Emily herself. Calling me instead of Karen was unusual, indicating something serious. I wondered what had happened. Emily, it's rare for you to call me. What's going on?
Dad, what should I do? Something terrible happened. Mom left a note and left the house.
I can't believe that she left before your exams. Karen wouldn't do something like that.
It's true. Mom left.
Emily replied. While comforting the deeply shaken Emily, I felt turmoil within myself. Karen, who values family more than anyone else, leaving home. I was fortunate that it happened on the last day of fishing, and the day was exceptionally good for the catch. I can't tell anyone the fact that Karen left, no matter what. I quickly made up reasons for the crew, and my boat hastily returned to the port. When I arrived home, it was already dark outside. When I opened the door in a rush, Emily was sitting on the floor.
Dad, this is it. Mom's note.
Distraught, Emily handed me a crumpled piece of paper. Indeed, in Karen's neat handwriting, there was a note that said, "Thank you for everything and goodbye." Emily explained that she found it in the trash. I looked around the chilling room, taking it all in. Did Karen leave in a hurry? The room was left in disarray.
Hey, isn't it strange? Mom is so organized, she never leaves the room messy when going out.
Yeah, you're right. It's unlike her. I responded. Both Emily and I waited anxiously for any communication from Karen, but on that day, she didn't return. The morning arrived without any sleep. I contacted relatives, but there was no news of Karen. We filed a missing person report with the police and, along with Emily, waited for Karen to come back.
It's my fault. I was so irritated with the exam studies and took it out on Mom.
That's not true. Karen has always been your biggest supporter. In a state of panic, taking on the role of Emily's mother, I decided to stay at home. It was the first time I had stopped fishing, even when my parents passed away. I explained the situation to the crew and had them understand the circumstances. Not setting sail wasn't just my problem. It meant the crew would lose their livelihood. I knew that I shouldn't do it as a captain, but I couldn't leave Emily on land alone without Karen. In the early afternoon, one of my crew members, Smith, rushed to my home.
Captain, is it true that Mrs. Karen is missing?
Smith, a crew member planning to start his own boat this spring, asked. He came to my house as soon as he heard the situation, comforting the downhearted Emily. But that wasn't all. Worried about Karen and for the absent captain, Smith volunteered to act as a temporary captain. For the captain unable to set sail due to his wife's absence. For the sake of the crew's daily lives. I shed tears of gratitude for having such a reliable subordinate. Thus, while supporting Emily in her studies just before the exams, my days of desperately trying to manage unfamiliar household chores began. Not only washing dishes but also doing laundry and cooking were tough to beat. Fortunately, thanks to Karen thoroughly teaching Emily about household chores, I learned while being guided by Emily's uncertain hands. Had Karen been doing all these countless things every day? I keenly felt how much I had relied on Karen's kindness. Karen, please come back. Both Emily and I will do our best, so at least show us your face. I repeatedly called out in my mind, but there was still no clue about her disappearance. And as Karen remained missing, the day of the exam finally arrived. While accompanying the disheartened Emily and preparing to leave the house a bit early, something unexpected happened. It was still early in the morning, around 6 o'clock, when someone came to our house. Wondering who it could be at such an early hour, we opened the door. What was there? There stood a police officer wearing a mask and Karen with bandages wrapped around her head.
Mom. It's not a dream. It's really. Mom.
Emily, half crazed, approached Karen and hugged her tightly, as if confirming her mother's presence. While comforting Emily's sobbing back, Karen, covered in wounds, also burst into tears. Watching the two of them, I gently wiped away tears with my fingers.
I apologize for the early hour. The formal procedures are not yet complete, but Karen insisted on coming urgently. I brought her here while verbally confirming the address. Actually, Karen was climbing towards the church at the mountain top when she slipped on a frozen snowy path, falling from the mountain trail. She suffered significant injuries all over her body and lost consciousness for several days, even though she was quickly taken to the hospital.
The police officer began to explain matter-of-factly. It seems that Karen went to a church in the neighboring state to buy charms for Emily's success prayer and as a farewell gift for my subordinate, Smith, who was planning to become independent. Since the church was built on top of a mountain, a little mountain climbing was necessary. However, she slipped and accidentally fell while climbing, resulting in the accident. Even so, she managed to grab onto a branch on the way down, reducing the impact of the fall. Fortunately, there was a passerby behind her, and she was quickly rescued by the rescue team. Karen suffered significant injuries all over her body during the fall, and she lost her smartphone and wallet when she tumbled. She was immediately taken to the hospital afterward, but it was challenging to identify Karen's personal information as her belongings were not found. Furthermore, the unfortunate events continued. Even though Karen regained consciousness safely a week later, the impact to her head during the fall was significant, leading to temporary memory loss. Even though her health had recovered to the point where she could be discharged from the hospital, both the hospital and the police were at a loss as to who this woman was.
Tomorrow marks the start of the university entrance exams. To all the students taking the exams, do your best.
At that moment when the television news was broadcasted, suddenly, as if she had a revelation, she started speaking.
Exam takers, university entrance exams, the common test. Emily is waiting for me. I have to cheer for her. Emily is waiting for me.
Concerned about Karen repeating her words like a delirium, the doctor contacted the police. In a hurry, they brought Karen to the address she provided, revealing the truth behind this disappearance incident. Last night, it seems the police tried to call our home as well. However, due to the setting that prevented the ringtone from sounding for calls from unregistered numbers, and with all the hustle and bustle, we didn't notice. When I checked the phone, there was a voicemail. Finally, with her memory restored, Karen managed to make it just in time for Emmy's entrance exam. Karen herself was feeling quite down as she had inconvenienced everyone and wasn't in the best health.
John, I messed up. I'm really sorry. And Emily, I couldn't be there for you during the most crucial time, and truth be told, I actually dropped the charm I bought. I'm a lousy mom. I'm truly sorry.
What are you saying? Your presence is my charm. You're the guardian angel of our home. So, from now on, don't leave the house without telling us, okay?
While talking, both Karen and Emily are breaking down in tears. The police officer was nodding in agreement while their eyes welled up with tears. For the past 2 weeks, I hadn't felt alive, but finally, I could breathe a sigh of relief from the bottom of my heart. Really. My wife is truly grateful to the police and hospital staff for taking care of her. I thanked the police officer multiple times and immediately contacted Smith, who was out at sea. While listening to the voices of the crew celebrating Karen's safety on the ship, I couldn't hold back the overflowing tears. Thanks to everyone's support, Emily's exams went well, and she successfully advanced to the first term of the national university of her choice. Karen is also taking home treatment just to be safe, and our home has finally returned to its normal routine. With the hectic days settling down, I suddenly remembered and asked about the note that was left behind. Because of this note, both I and Emily thought you had disappeared, causing a big commotion. Then, Karen asked, "What are you talking about?" and handed over the crumpled letter.
Oh, this paper. Mr. Smith is going to become an independent captain this spring, right? I was trying to come up with a congratulatory message, but I couldn't quite express it well. That's when I remembered. When John became captain, he received a charm for maritime safety from the captain at that time.
Actually, Karen said that she decided to buy the same charm she received when I, a young me, became independent. In a hurry, she went to the church to get it. She should have consulted with me first, but I was about to say that, but seeing Karen bowing her head, I couldn't bring myself to speak. I was always absent and unavailable when she wanted to consult with me. So, Karen decided everything held on all by herself all this time. Deciding and acting immediately, it was a typical Karen-style mistake. As spring approaches, once I've safely seen off Emily to her university, I plan to visit that church at the mountaintop with Karen. Let's go buy a maritime safety charm for Smith this time. When I said that, Karen blushed but smiled happily.
Thank you. You're right. From now on, I should rely on you, John.
This time, I have to make sure I support Karen from behind so she won't accidentally fall again. With that thought in mind, I smiled back at Karen.